Welcome everyone, this is On Just Restart, and this time we're talking about what could be coming beyond this Nintendo Direct mini partner showcase. And I'm talking about this now, not because I don't want to appreciate this partner showcase, because actually I do. I think it was actually a pretty darn good presentation for what it is, and what it is isn't something insignificant, it is significant. This is one of the better partner presentations we have gotten. I think it did a great job of demonstrating a number of partner projects between Nintendo and other third parties that are looking to be pretty good releases on Switch, and I think it's actually helping to fill out the lineup for this year quite well. But there's a number of things that we saw in this presentation and that we're seeing surrounding this presentation that are leading me to consider that there could be more coming beyond, and soon. What do I mean by more? Well, I'm not sure. Maybe a Nintendo Direct, maybe a series of Twitter announcements. But I think there's something else that Nintendo has planned for this summer in terms of giving us more news and filling out the lineup for the rest of this year. So that's what we're focusing on today. Now before we jump into things, let me first very quickly talk about my social media. You may see a few different things here on screen. You can check that all out. It is linked in the description below. And while you're at it, if you could also like the video, it really helps out. And perhaps even consider joining as a member. To get things started, let's first take another moment to appreciate this partner showcase. I know not everyone absolutely loved this showcase because it wasn't chock full of a whole bunch of first party announcements, but there's a number of quality things here. Sonic Frontiers had one of its best demonstrations in this partner showcase. There was a number of interesting exclusives that we're seeing that are looking rather promising. Harvestella, Blanc, and The Legend of Right all look rather interesting to me. And we also got other pretty high tier announcements such as a series of Persona games coming to Switch, Nier Automata coming to Switch, and it's looking to be running relatively well with a bit of exclusive content on top of that. And then of course there's Monster Hunter Rise, which is a big deal, and it showed even more off of the Sunbreak expansion. And then we finally got an official date for Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope. There were rumors earlier in the year that the game might be getting delayed, but it's looking like the game will still be making it out this year, and it is coming October 20th. And this is a big deal kind of game. Mario Rabbids, last I checked, sold at least 7.5 million, perhaps more. But the point is, it was a significant release, and this one is a follow-up to that, and it's looking to be an improvement in a lot of different ways, and Nintendo is clearly pushing it here, and they are publishing it in a number of regions, so this is one of Nintendo's big releases, even though it's been developed by Ubisoft, and it was featured in this partner showcase. But after having seen this partner showcase and everything that it entailed, yes, it was good, but it almost felt like half of a full-scale Nintendo Direct. Like basically all of what we saw during this partner showcase could have fit into a general Nintendo Direct, just excluding the first party offerings. And when we factor that just last week we had a very solid Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct, if you combine both those things, that would have been not so bad of a Direct. We've gotten about 50 minutes of content from both of these presentations, which would be comparable to the amount of time we would see for other Directs. Now naturally, if it was a full-scale Direct, the one big first-party release wouldn't just be Xenoblade Chronicles 3, we'd see less minutes of that and we'd see more minutes of other things, maybe Zelda or Metroid or another Mario game, things of that nature. But the content doesn't just stop there. Live Alive, another pretty good game that was shown off during the partner showcase and something that Nintendo is publishing, just got a treehouse today as well. And when by the time you see this video, there will also be a presentation for Mario Rabbids. So they are showcasing these different games. Now Ubisoft is hosting the presentation for Mario Rabbids, but we are getting a lot of content for different games and a lot of announcements that is starting to compare to what we would have gone during a normal E3 week. Yes, E3 was canceled. Yes, Nintendo didn't have plans during E3. But when you think about all the announcements we've been getting throughout June, it's starting to compare quite favorably. Earlier this month, we did get that nice significant trailer for Scarlet and Violet. Then we got the Xenoblade Chronicles 3 Direct. Then we got this mini partner showcase, which was pretty substantial. We're getting the Mario Rabbids presentation. We have the Live Alive Treehouse. And all of that there is a significant amount of content. But even if you were to take all these things, maybe shorten it up a bit, make it more concise, and fit it into what we would sort of anticipate from a typical E3 style Direct, there would still be things that I think most people would agree would be lacking. It isn't so much that there isn't like quality content there, because there is, and I think if we don't get any more announcements for the year, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, because we already know about Splatoon 3 and Scarlet and Violet and now Mario Rabbids, and then obviously also Xenoblade 3. So there are some decent first party / Nintendo published games coming in the second half of the year, along with some cool third party stuff. But compared to prior years, we're definitely lacking some first party announcements. So like many other Nintendo fans, I am wondering, is there more? Now some people may argue, well, in October there's a number of third party releases coming, and Mario Rabbids Sparks of Hope is coming out in October, and then November we are getting Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Maybe Nintendo doesn't really have any more space to announce any more games to come out for this second half of the year. Well, what about December? What about August? And why does there have to only be one game per month? We look back to last year. For October, we got Metroid Dread and Super Mario Party, and then November, we got Shin Megami Tensei 5 and Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, all published by Nintendo, all within about a 6-week period of time. 4 significant releases. Mario Party, I would say, is a more significant release than Mario Rabbids, but they are comparable. And then Scarlet and Violet, given that it's a whole new generation, probably will be a more significant release than Brilliant Diamond Shining Pearl, but when that game came out, it was actually pacing to be one of, if not the best selling Pokemon games ever. So they're also comparable, and yet we still got Metroid Dread, a brand new Metroid game that also launched alongside the Nintendo Switch OLED, and Shin Megami Tensei 5, a huge third-party game that Nintendo helped to publish and bring out, that had been talked about and teased and announced at the very beginning of the Switch era during the January presentation in 2017. My point here is that there's a history of Nintendo putting out more than what we're getting so far, and it's not really a stretch at all because we've seen Nintendo do it just last year. Which brings me to things that are sort of missing that I think we need news on. One big one, Bayonetta 3, supposedly is coming out this year. They haven't announced a delay yet like they did with Breath of the Wild 2, so I'm not sure it's getting delayed. It might be getting delayed given that we haven't got any information from it, and they could have shown it off during the partner showcase. They showed off Mario Rabbids, and Nintendo is publishing that, and Mario is in the game, so why couldn't they have shown off Bayonetta 3? Well, they just chose not to. Maybe they are saving it for some other announcement. Maybe it's going to be a shadow drop trailer similar to what they did for Xenoblade Chronicles 3 and Splatoon 3, and they just gave us a release date, and then they'll just start releasing information in that way. Okay, fine. Maybe they could just do that for Bayonetta 3, even though Bayonetta 3 is a bit more niche than other things, and I do think it kind of deserves to have some spotlight during a Direct. But let's just, for the sake of argument, say, okay, fine, they'll just drop trailers and stuff throughout social media for that game. What about the second wave for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe DLC? A few times recently I've made the mistake of saying that there's going to be 8 waves coming, there's actually 6, but still, the first wave came out in March and it's due to be completed by the end of 2023. You would think we'd get 3 waves per year. If the first one came out in March and it was announced in February, we're already entering July pretty much. When are we getting the announcement for that second wave? It's about time, so that's overdue. Given that it's just DLC, maybe that also could just be a social media drop. But if we're getting Bayonetta 3 drop throughout social media, and we're getting the Mario Kart stuff also drop throughout social media, what gives? But something else that we should consider here is that we're just talking about known quantities. Typically, around this time of the year, the E3 Directs usually, we get a number of announcements to fill up the lineup for the second half of the year from Nintendo, actual published Nintendo games, and teases for the year beyond. We haven't gotten that yet. Yes, there's some third-party stuff, That's third-party stuff from the partner showcase. Is it possible that Nintendo doesn't have anything in the works? I think that's doubtful. Every year there's at least 1 or 2 more announcements they could be doing. So what could that be? Well, recently, Jeff Grubb did more definitively say that Metroid Prime remaster / remake, because supposedly it's more of a substantial remaster, is coming out this holiday in line for the 20th anniversary for Metroid Prime. And we've seen a series of reports for this game coming, not just from Jeff Grubb, but from Emily Rogers and other credible insiders as well. So now that Jeff Grubb is saying it more definitively, there's that extra bit of confidence there. And if we were to assume this is actually going to happen, when does Nintendo announce this game? They can't wait that long. Metroid isn't Mario, they can't just announce it right before release, like it needs some time. And even with Mario, they usually should still market things at least a few months beforehand. There's the one exception of 3D All-Stars, but beyond that, every time, there's at least 3 to 4 months before a game comes out. So, you gotta think that if this game is coming out, let's say at the latest December, they would make an announcement September. But I doubt it's even coming out in December. It's probably coming out November or October, if not earlier. So it's gotta be announced soon. And again, even if it's coming out December, I do think September is a bit of a stretch in terms of announcing this game for this year. So this game is probably due for an announcement if it is actually coming out this year. And another thing I have not even mentioned yet is Advance Wars 1-2 Reboot Camp. What about that game that's been delayed a couple times indefinitely? Is it not coming out this year? I feel like it probably should come out this year. So it's a whole other game that could be announced at any point. So when you consider the Mario Kart DLC, the need to announce this supposedly holiday release Metroid Prime game, Bayonetta 3, and Advance Wars, where's this information coming from? But there's even more to talk about here, because typically we get several different Treehouse segments every year. And interestingly, we did get a Treehouse segment for Live Alive, and that's awesome. But I think that comes with the implication that there could be more Treehouses to come. We even got a few different Treehouses during the pandemic year in 2020, when Nintendo's lineup was severely lacking and they had a lot of things to work out in terms of pacing and timing. So there are probably more Treehouses to come. And one in particular that I think needs to happen is for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. We have not seen that much of this game, and considering how far into the year we are, compared to previous generations, we haven't seen that much. Typically, we'll get some sort of gameplay demonstration by this point in the year, so I think we're also due for at least a Treehouse segment for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. And also considering the framework they seem to be handling Xenoblade Chronicles 3, and how they announced the release date for that in the same week as Splatoon 3, I'm also thinking that there's probably gotta be some sort of presentation for Splatoon 3 as well. Maybe it gets its own dedicated direct not too long from now, and also probably a test fire, maybe a Treehouse. So there's a number of things that still need to be talked about and shown off not too long from now. Splatoon 3 is coming out in September. We need to see more of this game before it actually comes out. So the point I'm making here is there's actually a lot of things that still need to be discussed and presented by Nintendo. So what's going on? What's gonna happen? Is it all just gonna be social media drops? Like, you know, just like a trailer drop on Twitter or just some sort of post with a couple images? Maybe, but that feels like a lot. That feels like enough content, especially if there's 1 or 2 other little things thrown in there, that would fill out a direct quite nicely, especially if you pair it up with all the announcements we had in the partner showcase and the Xenoblade Focus as well. Which kind of brings me to something that Jeff Grubb had said a while back, and he's mentioned this in a couple of different ways, but basically he had heard that instead of doing a traditional direct, Nintendo's going to be having a number of smaller summer showcases. Here on Twitter I'm seeing, in response to the Xenoblade 3 Direct, this fits with what I heard about Nintendo doing their summer showcases in bits and pieces. I still expect more news later this month. Now, the more news was the partner showcase But as I've talked about throughout this video, there are still a number of other things that Nintendo probably should talk about not too long from now. So is it possible there is another presentation? Because there was mention of multiple presentations. Is multiple just two? Just a couple? Just a pair? Or could there be more? Is there another Direct not too far off from now? Maybe. I don't want to be the guy that just completely overhypes things, although sometimes that is kind of fun. But I am suggesting it as a possibility. I am wondering what's going on here. I do think we're going to get more Treehouse segments throughout the year. I do think there's a need to talk about a number of projects before the summer is over, unless they're getting delayed. Looks at Bayonetta 3. So I'm definitely keeping my eyes peeled, and it wouldn't be shocked if within a couple weeks from now we hear about something else coming from Nintendo. It does kind of feel like we're getting sort of like that sort of E3-like level of information of games. It's just a bit more spread out. Last week it was Xenoblade 3. This week it's the Partner Showcase and the Live Alive Treehouse segment, and also the Mario Rabbids Showcase. So maybe there's also something else not too far off. And also, I want to mention again that only a couple weeks ago we also got the Scarlet and Violet trailer as well. As they usually do, we get some Pokemon information shortly before Nintendo presents everything else. So I think something's brewing. I'm not sure it's going to be another Nintendo Direct. I would love to see that. But things are definitely weird. Things are definitely different. And this mystery is kind of exciting to me. I'm very curious as to sort of seeing what Nintendo is going to do. Even though them not giving us a traditional Direct was a bit alarming to some extent, the Partner Showcase was pretty good. The Xenoblade Direct was also pretty good. And I think they're actually doing a great job of giving us information for a lot of quality stuff, and I'm actually thinking there still could be more. And all of that's exciting. But what do you guys think is happening? What do you make of all this information? Do you expect there to be more, or do you think this is it? Let me know in the comments below. Anyways, everyone, this is On Just Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.